Welcome back, folks. I'm Jake ELLENBOGEN, and today we're going to be talking about how the Rams were able to not only beat the Vikings on Monday Night Football during Wild Card Weekend, but they found a way to absolutely demolish them. Before we dive into it, be sure to like, subscribe, and comment. Be sure to follow me on all social media at JKBogan, including Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and Kick. And in addition to that, just want to let you guys know that today's sponsor is BetUS, and you can get a 150% bonus match on your first deposit and 125% on your following two deposits using the code YouTube150. Again, if you're looking for a sports book, they have you covered. Go check them out, YouTube150. Be sure to bet responsibly over at BetUS. All right, guys, so I really wanted to hit on this video because I think what can happen is when you watch a game like that, you can overlook things. And I really just rewatching, and I'm going to have kind of like a film breakdown, if you will, or a film review or an under the microscope, whatever we're calling it, probably tomorrow or something along those lines. But I just wanted to make this very clear what happened last night, because what happened essentially was this. First off, Sam Darnold, doesn't matter who it was back there. If any team shows you what they showed you last night, yes, some quarterbacks might have made some things happen, but I don't think anybody was beating a Rams defense that played last night. That was an absolute freaking clinic. I do have to say that was catered to basically throwing off Sam Darnold. You can't just use this again against Jalen Hurts. You might have some success, but it wouldn't be nearly as effective. They did pick on Sam Darnold's insecurities in the pocket when the play breaks down. But more importantly, there's a lot of people out there that believe that they copied Aaron Glenn and the Detroit Lions, who set the blueprint to beat the Vikings in Week 18. Let's not forget, one, the Rams beat this team 30-20 in Week 8, okay? So let's not forget that. Keep in mind, the defense at that point, coming off the bye, they had only had one game really showing you, okay, this defense can play. That's the first thing. But in addition to that, that game was close. That was a game in the fourth quarter. This was never a game. This really just truly was domination from the get-go. And so how did that come to be? How did that end up happening? What led to that? Well, when you look at this defense, just absolutely incredible stuff. Up front, you get 43 pressures. And when I saw that from PFF, I laughed out loud. Not LOL. I quite literally laughed out loud to myself. I woke up, I was in my bed, and this is the psycho I am, woke up in my bed, saw PFF, opened up PFF. I had it already set and everything. Refresh. Boom, everything is there. 43 freaking pressures. Then you go back and you rewatch the game and you see, yeah, there were 43 freaking pressures, but a lot of that came down to some other things that we're going to get into. The first and foremost, Byron Young, career game, 8 pressures in this one. Jared Verse, 7 pressures. Braden Fisk, 6. Michael Hoyt, 5. Kobe Turner, 5. Keir Thomas, how about that? A guy that I was kind of on the fence whether or not to make a video about because, whatever, right? He was getting taken off the practice squad. I made the video. He ends up getting 3 pressures in this game. Desjuan Johnson with 2 pressures. Christian Roseboom had 2. Neville Gallimore had 2 and 1.5 sacks. Kobe Durant had a pressure. Quentin Lake, Akello Witherspoon. So first off, how the hell did this happen? How? When you look at that, you're like, what happened? How did this occur? Because it just doesn't make a hell of a lot of sense. When you look at this Rams defense, they have been so good this year. The pressure rate has been through the roof, but 43, I have never seen a number that high. And to explain, they didn't even have 30 pressures in the Super Bowl against Joe Burrow, and you could have sworn they had more than that. But no, they didn't. That also means Sam Darnold was pressured over 70 times in 2 games, which is insane. But anyway, how did this happen? Well, here's the thing. When you look at the Vikings side of things, this offensive line is struggling. Cam Robinson gave up 12 pressures, their left tackle in this game. There's no excuse. They acquired him a while ago from the Jaguars. He should be acclimated. Like, this isn't he's bad. This is just they absolutely dominated him. Brian O'Neill, who's one of the better right tackles, some would say very underrated in this league, gave up 7 pressures on the right side. Right guard, Dalton Reisner. Love the guy, came on DTR, friend of the podcast, but he gave up 5 pressures. Blake Brendel at left guard gave up 5 pressures. David Kessenberry gave up 2 when he filled in for the injured Brian O'Neill at the end of the game. And Garrett Bradbury gave up a pressure at center. This team gave up 32 pressures, and the 43, because they don't always come from the offensive line, there were free runners. There were free paths to Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold had something to do with these pressures as well, to be fair. Not a ton. And to be fair, I want to give a lot of credit to him because I don't even know how he made it through both games the past 2 weeks. 76 pressures in 2 weeks, and he was only responsible for 4 of them. The 4 of them were his own doing. So you got to give him a lot of credit there. But how did this happen? How'd the Rams do this? Like, they didn't copy anything. What they did was they changed what they've been doing. They made a catered approach. They had these defensive backs clearly doing things that they haven't done most of the year, if not ever this year. And you saw immediate results. Because guess what? When you're Sam Darnold preparing for the Rams, you know what you're doing? You're watching game film. You're watching, what do they do? How can I attack them? What can I look for? What are some cues? Well, here's the problem. It's like studying for a test. And they give you a test on something that wasn't even part of the book that you were supposed to study. Like, out of nowhere, you're studying for a history test and you show up to take the test and you're like, sorry, it's a math test. And you're like, what? How is it a math test? I studied for the history test. That is what the Rams did. Chris Shula, they all deserve credit. And I'm going to give everybody credit by name because I don't think everybody quite understands. It's a team effort. I say it all the time. Sean McVay continues year after year, no matter who gets poached, to build a great coaching staff, but that shouldn't be without saying. Joe Caniglio is doing an amazing job as an outside linebackers coach. I mean, the development of Jared Verse speaks for itself. You know, Byron Young having a career day, Michael Hoyt being a huge contributor, Keir Thomas getting him ready to go. You know, I think that's huge. Chris Beek, he's doing a great job as a safeties coach. You see what he's done developing guys like Jalen McCullough, developing guys like Cameron Kinchins. You got to love what he's done with Quentin Lake. So Chris Beek deserves a lot of credit. Giff Smith, the defensive lines coach, deserves a ton of credit. That defensive line has been potent and filthy up front. Greg Williams, the linebackers coach, not Triple G Greg, who was the defense coordinator for the Rams in the past. Greg Williams, the linebackers coach, has done wonders with Omar Spates and Christian Roseboom. AC Carter and Mike Harris have been assistant coaches that have also really helped out this team. And of course, you can't forget about Aubrey Pleasant, defensive passing game coordinator, who's done a fantastic job, in my opinion. And I think he's going to get looks for defensive coordinator sooner than later. I look at him as they could potentially lose him to, Raheem Morris's Falcons. We'll see what ends up happening there. But look, these guys make it work, but so do the players. So I wanted to give them credit before I gave the players credit. There's been a lot of talk, and I pushed back all season long from people saying the Rams need a lockdown corner next year. The Rams need to go out and get Jair Alexander. The Rams need to go out and get Jalen Ramsey. The Rams they don't need to do any of that. They don't need to do any of that. And I hope we're seeing now against one of the best, arguably the best duos in the league, wide receiver-wise, Jordan Addison and, of course, Justin Jefferson, who's probably the best receiver in football. They shut them down. And it wasn't Sam Darnold missing his spots. A big part of why Sam Darnold was pressured 43 times is what's not talked about nearly enough. It was the secondary. The secondary did such a good job. So what did they do? Well, they mixed up their coverages, obviously. That's a macro way of explaining it, showing Sam Darnold things he hasn't seen all freaking year, and definitely hasn't seen on the Rams tape. But if you watch the tape, and we'll get into it, later in the week, but the defense put on a damn clinic. They use 2 stars occasionally. The star role went, between Quentin Lake and Kobe. They used Kobe and Lake on the same, on the same field at the same time. They threw so much at Darnold. We talk about the analogy of, I studied for this test, you gave me a completely different topic. There you go. And this was just an absolute masterpiece from Chris Shula. And I'm sure Sean McVay had a lot to do with it, and so did Aubrey Pleasant and the coaching staff. But the secondary's communication is what allows this to work. When you have guys that are talking and these guys are adjusting on the fly, it allows this defense to work. The defensive front 8, they did their job. They were given either really good coverage in the back end, the defensive backfield, or they just got through before it mattered. And that was a big key component there. The linebackers, okay? You want to know why the linebackers are able to just go out and ball out? It seems like they've really just taken another step forward, is because now the linebackers don't have to think. It's not like having a Luke Kuechly out there where now Luke Kuechly essentially has to do his thing. Luke Kuechly, when he was playing, was the commander of the defense. He is the captain. He is the signal caller. The Rams just use essentially Quentin Lake, and you can see Ahkello Witherspoon on tape, and he's also communicating with this team. So you have those 2 guys. Obviously, you have Cameron Curl as well, but they use the secondary to communicate and get the linebackers set up correctly, so it takes that mental weight off their shoulders, and now those linebackers can just go and play football and run downhill and make plays, and that's what we've seen. Roseboom's played well. Omar Spates has played really well, and when you see those guys, they're so damn quick to the football now because they don't have to think. They're just playing. They're just playing their game. They're just being physical. That is the great thing about that. So it's just really cool to see. I can't stress that enough. I mean, I think when you look at just the way this is a team effort and everything that's going on with this team, this is a collective effort. And it kind of goes to the fact that, look, they are a young team, a young defense. They lost Aaron Donald. And there are going to be people that say, like, oh, they need to go out and get this guy and this guy. The reality is they don't need anything on the defensive part, okay? They can upgrade. But if you ran it back with this same group of guys next year, and by the way, you absolutely could. Roseboom is a restricted free agent. Ahkello is a free agent. Bobby Brown is a free agent. You could bring all those guys back and run it back. And guess what? That would be great. That would be great because this is a great defense. They have grown. They overcame a lot. They looked historically bad to start the season with a rookie defensive coordinator. But what did we talk about week 1? They had glimpses of excellence. That was what did I call it? An inspiring heartbreak. That is what I said after they lost to the Lions in overtime. They were a gassed defense that got ran over by David Montgomery. You're not used to playing an overtime game, especially with no preseason for a lot of those guys. So, yeah, that's what happened. And it took them time. But now they have the personnel that they want to have. They have the guys in positions that they want to have. And this just goes to show you. They should not have signed Trey White. They should have signed Ahkello Witherspoon. I'm going to say it until I'm blue in the face. I mean, it's not crazy now. And I hope people are realizing the strip sack, the coverage. He gave up, 2 catches on 3 targets for 8 yards? We'll take that all day. That's what we're talking about. What doesn't get talked about is how often Sam Darnold had to hold the ball because they were blanketing in the secondary. Now, people will point to, what about his missed throw where, he had Jalen Naylor who would have just kept running? He didn't have Jalen Naylor. It looked that way. It appeared that way. But what you can't see on TV and what they didn't do a good job of bringing up is that they had Cameron Curl running downhill. He was going to break that ball up. So it's crazy to me. It's absolutely crazy. The job that was done, and Brett Coleman brought this up. It was just really cool to see, because Brett Coleman, at Brett Coleman on Twitter, had 11 of the 24 pressures were under 2.5 seconds. 13 of them were over 2.5 seconds. So Dan Orlovsky of ESPN was like, can you give me context on this? Is that little, average, whatever? Brett Coleman explains the average number of pressures given up in under 2.5 seconds per team per week is about 7.3. And the average number given up per team per week of over 2.5 seconds is 4.4. So the Rams had 11 of their 24 pressures under 2.5 seconds. That beats out the per week. And then 13 over 2.5 seconds, that beats out the 4.4. Now, obviously, they're missing 43 pressures. They have 24 there. I think it's just that's how it was listed, with, going up against like actual, matchups instead of just the empty, the free runners and all that. PFF has 43 pressures. The point I'm making here is that a lot of this game that is not talked about was because the secondary, okay, defensive line gets the sacks and it was exciting, but to have to guard your man, and your man is Justin Jefferson or a Jordan Addison, and you're doing it for 7 seconds, that's asking a hell of a whole lot. And so, obviously it wasn't 7, but you talk about that, right? It's hard. And so they did a excellent job, and I just don't see this stopping. This is very sustainable. They used a different style, right? They definitely called a different game. They did some different things for sure, but they also just manned up. A lot of match zone, man coverage. They just really trusted their guys. And in this game, Darius Williams was targeted 10 times, gave up 5 catches for 41. We'll take that. Christian Roseboom was targeted 10 times, gave up 6 catches for 85. 48 of those were yards after the catch, to be fair. Jalen McCullough gave up 6 catches in 6 targets for 52. Not great. We don't love that, but you can live with it. You're going up against really, really good competition. Quentin Lake gave up 3 of his 4 targets for 29 yards. We'll take that all day. He had a 22-yarder explosive he gave up. Akello Witherspoon, 2 of 3 given up for 8 yards, including 3 yards after the catch. He gave up the most he gave up was a 7-yard catch in this game. We'll take that. Josh Wallace played. He played 8 snaps, gave up a catch in 2 targets for 11 yards. We'll take that. Kobe Durant, 1 catch in 2 targets for 7 yards. So what am I trying to say? I'm basically telling you that while the defense up front, the defensive line ate, a big reason was because it was a collective effort. They did such a great job in the back end of the secondary. It was absolutely insane. I mean, that's what isn't really talked about. Justin Jefferson caught 1 pass on 2 targets versus Akello for a yard. Akello Witherspoon held Justin Jefferson to 1 yard. That needs to be talked about more. Kobe Durant held Jordan Addison to 0 yards. He only gave up 1 catch to Jalen Naylor. And so often people will say, well, they only had 2 targets. But what they don't talk about is how many reps we're talking about. How many different... See, that's the thing. Kello left the game with an injury. He still played 31 pass coverage reps. Kobe Durant ended up with 31 as well. And Darius Williams ended up with 42. That's what we don't talk about, is that they're still going out there defending it. And just because it's not thrown, just because it's not in there as a target, doesn't mean it wasn't great coverage. Take a look at the Jets game, for instance. Remember the Cam Curl strip sack on Aaron Rodgers? He was eyeing Devontae Adams the whole way down the field, and Ahkello Witherspoon blanketed him. And he wouldn't take his eye off Adams, and he held on to the ball too long, and Cam Curl knocked it out. That's how it works. It's really just that simple. If your pass rush is good enough, they'll get there before the 2.5 seconds. If the pass rush on that particular play isn't good enough to get through in the under 2.5 seconds, then now above 2.5 seconds, your secondary is put on the brink and they actually have to do their job. And it tells me that they did their job in this game. Obviously, just go back and watch the film. It's pretty obvious. Love what they did. The delayed blitz with Ahkello. That was huge. I definitely liked that. I liked the Kobe Durant blitz. Kobe Durant pick was huge. I love the tackle Ahkello made on the screen play to Justin Jefferson. I love the stuff we saw from Neville Gallimore and guys like that. Bobby Brown fighting through injury because he left this game, came back in. What can you say? There was a lot of stuff that went down. And, the stops here, talk about 2 defensive stops for Verse, Spates, Turner, Gallimore. Bobby Brown had a stop. Lake had a stop. Curl had a stop. It was really, really cool. So, really good stuff. And by the way, the Rams did not miss one tackle. Not one tackle that they missed in this game. They were all over it. And when you are this good, this sound, this disciplined, you are really tough to beat when you have the talent you have. You have the athleticism you have. People don't think about it, but that throw deep down the field to that track star, Jalen Naylor, if you watch, Christian Roseboom is on his hip. He's running stride for stride with him. People don't think about how athletic this guy is. Like Ahkello Witherspoon's athletic. Kobe's athletic. Darius is athletic. Cam Curl's athletic. Quentin Lake. All these guys. They might not have run the best 40 times, but this is why they're playing for the Rams. The Rams don't care about 40 times. They have their own GPS thing that they do. These guys are all fast. They're quick to the ball. They love football, and you see it. The passion was there. The Vikings shut down the final 7 minutes of the game. You could see they were defeated. The Rams were still playing tough at the end, even throwing some friendly fire. Whether, they should have done that or not, they were. They were really into it. Every single tackle was finished. They looked exactly like they did in week 1 when we're all kind of turning our heads like, Christian Roseboom and Troy Reeder are making some plays. Where'd this come from? And obviously we know what happened after, but I saw that crazy passion for the game and that love and just that physicality that we saw week 1 against the Lions. And I think it's going to serve them well. And it's why I really do think while the game plan will be different, you can't run the same thing against Jalen Hurts and the Eagles. I think what they're going to do is they're going to sell out to stop the run. Sean McVay is going to take a page out of his playbook from 2018, and they are going to sell out to stop the run like they did against Ezekiel Elliott. Everyone all week said Ezekiel Elliott is going to run roughshod of the Rams defense. It's not going to matter about Aaron Donald and Michael Brockers. And sure enough, they were willing to sacrifice the pass rush to make sure Dak Prescott had to win the game with his arm. And he couldn't do it because the Rams also ran for 200 yards combined, between Todd Gurley and CJ Anderson. Now, I don't think that's going to happen because the Eagles are a great run defense, and that's just not going to happen. But I do expect, if you were wondering, does this defense translate? It does. They're for real. They've held teams under 10, 4 of the 5 games, 4 games that matter. And they're scary, man. They are not a defense that anybody wants to see. They take away a lot of the things that you want to do, and they are dangerous. In the red area, they really shut you down, and if you go for it on 4th down, which the Eagles do, and yes, they'll try the tush push or the brotherly shove or whatever the hell they call it, the reality is the Rams are the best 4th down defense in the playoffs right now. If you look over the last, since the bye week. Also, this team is 10-3 since the bye week. So while people can sit there and complain about the Rams having a negative point differential and how they barely made the playoffs, which also isn't true. They should be looking at the fact that they have now won 10 of the last 13 games, and they are a scary, scary, scary team. And if they have to win with their defense and their offense just can do a little bit, I think that's going to be enough. But what's interesting to me is that while this was a masterclass, and I still think that they're going to find their way to shut down Philly, at least slow them down, I don't think we've seen the best out of the offense yet, and that's exciting. Also, they're healthy. Yeah, Kello got banged up. He'll be good to go. He'll play. No doubt about it. He is going to play. So you come out of this game relatively healthy. We already talked about Higbee coming back. Now you have that. I'm telling you, watch out. The Rams are coming, and this defense is just getting better and better and better. The more confident, the more comfortable, and the more they grow, the more experience they get. So those are my thoughts. Let me know in the comments section below what you guys think. I brought up a lot. I know I'm going to have more visual soon, either tomorrow or the next day. Want to throw some tape out there, show you guys why Sam Darnold, I don't really fault him as much as everyone else is faulting him. But that's going to do it. So again, hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys soon. Be sure to check out today's sponsor, BetUS, in the BetUS YouTube 150, the code, and you guys take care. Later, folks. And just a quick reminder, my new YouTube channel, if you want to support me further, it is The Lounge. I'll be having all sorts of guests from athletes, entrepreneurs, musicians, artists, actors, you name it. I am going to bring them on. So I'm looking forward to this show. It's going to get off the ground very shortly. We're over 500 subscribers, so it'd be really awesome to get to 1,000 before we even drop our first video, which will be soon. That's asking a lot. But if you haven't already, be sure to hit the subscribe button, and can't wait to see you guys there. In case you guys haven't noticed, I do have a Discord channel for my community on this channel, and if you want to be a part of it, it is free. The link is in the description below. You can sign up. This is basically a 24/7 Rams channel, and we are almost at 1,100 members. So if you want to be a part of it, just hit the link in the description below.